Hey guys, Evil Orso here, and today I have a new top 10 list for you. This video has been works for a long time, and I never really had a chance to finish it. But thanks to today, I have a day off from school, so I figured it would be a great chance for me to work on it. If you don't know what Wattpad is a great social media website that combines the great aspects of Facebook and Twitter with things like Fanfiction.net. It's a great website for people to express themselves. But I love reading Pokemon fanfics, and I often have trouble finding good ones, considering when I go on the fanfiction site, all I find is like One Direction fanfics. Yes, it is mainly female-centered, that's why a lot of the authors will be female on this list, but if you're female, you're a guy, anyone can enjoy this website. So I hope you guys enjoy this top 10, and here is the number 10 slot. Number 10 slot, we have the Thunder Games by KTD. This book is amazing. Unfortunately, only 5 or 6 chapters have been uploaded, but it still makes my list. For being written by an awesome author who has really been known in the community for just doing art, but she proved everybody wrong by making this awesome book. And I feel like this book will continue to be awesome. How can you not love a crossover with Pokemon and Hunger Games? It's great. It focuses around Sapphire, who is just, you think obviously is going to win the games because she's the most wild and stuff, and it's really cool. She tries to regain her memories, and she's trying to, win the games and survive with her friends. I think this book is definitely worth a read if you haven't read it yet, and for people who are just getting into it, I wouldn't say read this book first because it's not finished, maybe anything else on this list, but it still is worth a read, down the line. For 9 slot, we have Find My Voice by Shiny Mew Girl, or Smew. Now, what I like about Smew is that she's very interactive with people in the comments. Unlike a lot of bigger authors, they kind of don't care. And she knows what it's like to be an author that's not getting that many reads, so she definitely 100% interacts with people, and she has her Oh So Random book where she just shares her thoughts, and that's what I like. But this is not her only book on the list, I promise you this, but it is one of her best books. Find My Voice is about Paige, who is a mute, and was kidnapped by Getsis at a young age. And now, after escaping, ends up traveling with some new people and finding a way to, find her voice. It's a great story of showing the greatness of Paige and how she becomes and interacts with being mute and how she talks to everybody. Thankfully, she does have psychic Pokemon to talk to, and she's not completely lonely. But I think that this story is awesome, and it's 100% worth a read if you haven't read it yet. On the list, we have a book by Pyromaniac. Pyro is actually a good friend of mine. I'm not being biased here, but I really do like Pyro's work. I read every single book she's pretty much written, and she's been a huge inspiration. That's why you might see her more than once or twice on this list. This book is centered around Sora, whose family was killed in a car accident, and how she's getting over that, and she's going through the Pokemon journey. It's very typical of a story, but she was one of the people who did it best. She's a great writer, so she could really give Sora a really badass theme without having to make, it's a typical story. A lot of stories are really centered like this, and they tend to be boring, but this one did lead the way for a lot of her other stories with Sora. There's like another 4, so, great on her. We have an awesome fan fiction by Meme Nightwalker at the number 7 slot. Now, originally this book wasn't even going to be on the list, and it was like 9th or 10th. But I ended up moving this up for a couple reasons. I owe a lot to this book. It got me back into Pokemon. To be 100% honest with you, I was not into Pokemon for a few years, and then I read this book. And it got me into Wattpad, it got me into Pokemon, and it was great. She's a great author. This book maybe does not hold up in time because there's a lot more complex stories, and hers was kind of basic and kind of a little bit boring, but I owe a lot to this book. And personal connections aside, I do think it's a really good book. And if you really haven't read anything Pokemon related in a few years or anything, or even watched any or played with Pokemon in a few years, this is a good book to get back into it. It focuses around Leia and Cleo in the Unova region. They were originally from Sinnoh, and they were orphaned, taken from their home to work for Team Plasma as they have to take down Ash Ketchum and his gang, which is quite unfortunate. She ends up falling in love with N, which I find very weird because N's very weird. But it's a good story, so definitely read it if you get a chance. Like I said earlier, that was not Pyro's only book. She is an amazing author, and I talked about how the earlier book moved Sora into her different stories. Well, this story is main-centered or contest shipping, but Sora is definitely one of the main characters in the story, and in the next book in this series is one of the main characters. This goes back to olden times between the kingdoms owned by May's parents and Drew's parents, and how Sora fits into all of this with her falling in love, and etc., etc. But it's a great story, and it's way different than your typical Pokemon story. That's what you're going to see with the next couple things on the list. They're not your typical Pokemon story. Typical Pokemon stories are okay, but after a while they all feel the same. And that's why at this point on the list, from 6 onwards, you're going to be seeing a lot more creative Pokemon books. And this is not Piper's only book in this theme, and maybe I'll expand on that a little later. Number 5 slot, we have Revolution by the Pokemon Lover. Now, what I love about this book is, once again, it is set in medieval times, fighting between kingdoms. When the kingdom of Kalos becomes corrupt, the heroes of red, green, yellow, blue, gold, silver, crystal, etc., even including X and Y into the mix as well. What I really like about this story is it's a Pokesmith story, but it doesn't have to feel like one. Pokesmith stories are usually a lot about shipping, but this book focuses on the deep bones of the story. It is very, very short, but the chapters are very, very long. They also drew diagrams of what the characters would look like with their weapons, armory, and such, and I find that incredibly cool. These heroes, or whatever, end up really resonating with me, how the way they acted, and I feel like this is a great underrated fanfiction. It is probably the second most underrated thing on this list. There's still one more underrated story to come. For 4 slot, we have Why Me by Smeo. This book is really awesome. It takes the conventional story arc. It is set in Sinnoh, but it takes this typical Sinnoh story and throws it out the window. Emma, who is trying to get over her abusive father, Cyrus, goes through all of the regions with her super overpowered team, with Mew and Celebi and Meloetta. It is a lot of fun to watch at how she interacts. She ends up taking on Team Shadow, which is evil. In this book, really, like I said with other books by Pyro, that it leads into a better story arc in the 2 sequels, Why You and Why Us, which I think is awesome. When a good book can set up a decent story and then top it with their 2nd and 3rd books in the series, that is really something. I kept most of just the singular books on this list in case so you could read the first one instead of the second one. But yeah, Smeo is a great author, and I feel like that this is her last book, but I feel like on the list, but I feel like she's awesome, and she really needs to keep writing. This book really isn't any higher because she's mentioned many times that she doesn't like writing the series anymore. So you can't really put confidence in something that isn't there anymore. 3 spot, we have Hearts of Gold by ChronaLilly. I'm so sorry, Chrona. This book was so close to being number 1. Like, this was number 1 through my rough draft, through my editing, and then just recently, unfortunately, I had to bump you back to 3rd. With me recently rereading all of the top 3 stories to make a final decision, I decided that your story at the beginning and the end, it was a great middle, but it was a hard start, and it was a very rough ending. Unfortunately, spoiler alerts, they never get past the 8th gym, which is kind of sad because I wanted to see them go to Kanto and do the post game, but it's not that long. It's still a longer story, but unfortunately it can't compete with the first 2. What I do like about this series though is the sequel. The sequel may be my favorite book ever, but I decided only to keep first books in the series on this list. If the sequel was, I put it in honorable mentions too because it was so close to just getting on the list and I was breaking my own rules. But if I could have put the sequel on, it would 100% be number 1. Chrona is a great author who's 100% underrated. This book is probably the least popular book. If a lot of you don't even know that there's a sequel, and she's even writing the 3rd book in the series right now. So if you're interested and you want to get into a book that's ongoing, definitely read this series. Like 100% read the series. The first book, it may be hard to get through, but it's all worth it once you get to the 2nd story. Number 2 slot, we have The Hacker by Dragon Rose. This book has won so many awards, it's hard to even talk about. What I like about this book is it's centered around a young, smart, antisocial Leaf who ends up hacking her Pokemon Red and Blue and goes too far when she ends up getting taken into the game. She ends up forcing to be played with all the Pokemon that, nobody wants. She ends up having Bulbasaur, she ends up having Hitmonchan, and now she's playing through the game again with the Pokemon she doesn't like. She's forced to have bonds with her Pokemon, which was something she didn't have before. She just used them so she could win. Eventually, she ends up competing the game and some other stuff happens. I don't want to spoil it for you because how amazing this story is, but I 100% recommend you read this. It is really good. It barely beat out Hearts of Gold, and I talked so highly of Hearts of Gold, so this book is just as good. Gets the #1 spot. Let's look at some honorable mentions. Now, honorable mentions were things that I considered putting on the list, and unfortunately most of these books aren't done, considering you only saw one of my 10 books that weren't done on this list. And then there's the sequel to Hearts of Gold, which is so good. Oh my god, read that book. But if you've already read all of the stories on this list and you're still looking for more, 100% read these stories. They're all good. You see Smew has another book on here, and a lot of these writers like Indigo, the writer of Scratch Sapphires, it's such an underrated book, and honestly, if you guys give it a read, it would really mean a lot to the authors. And a lot of authors don't get a lot of reads because they're just not popular enough, and to get them popular enough, you gotta read their books. They're some of the best books I've ever read in my life, and they still are 100% of my top 15, top 16 books, and they really should be celebrated, even if they don't make the top 10. #1 spot, we have Broken History, Burdering Destinies by Pyromaniac. Like I said earlier, she's not done. This book once again takes place in the medieval times, but this book is seriously medieval. It is seriously gruesome, and it is seriously awesome. You have characters like Hibiki, who comes from Earth and ends up touching some artifact and he comes back in life. And then you have Badass Rin, who's like Sora. Then you have so many other characters that are just so lovable. I can't even find bad things to talk about this book. Originally this book was only #3 on this list, and everything kind of got a little flip-flopped. And this, after rereading it again, I just realized how much I loved it. And Pyro's a great author. She is one of the best authors on Wattpad, if not the best author on Wattpad. And I honestly think if you do not read this book, you are crazy. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really means a lot to me to talk about something that I really love, and it's a part of my life. I do write my own fanfictions, so if you're looking to find me, my username is evilorso, like it is now. So yeah, this was a fun video to make, super casual. Just sitting here talking about some things that I really like. I'm gonna try to do more videos about things that I feel more comfortable with doing, like the draft league formats, like the UBC. It just stressed me out to make those videos. And these videos are so much fun to make, and it's really awesome to honor a lot of my friends and fellow writers that 100% deserve it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.